Hey y'all, I'm CJ. I'm a writer and designer living in Sydney. And today I'm going to be doing something a little different, which is reacting to my past self. I'm sure you've done something similar in your own ways. Maybe you've read a past journal from like your high school or even elementary days. Maybe you've written yourself a letter to the future. There's so many different ways that we can do this, but one way I'm going to do it is through an essay that I wrote when I was really going through it. It was one of the first essays that I published out there that was a bit more personal, sharing my feelings, that wasn't essentially writing about design or something else. And I had been on LiveJournal before. I had been on Tumblr back in the ye olden days, sharing everything about my life to random people on the internet. But it was never to an extent of like my emotional turmoil, my own introspection. It was almost like, hey, here's what happened today in school. And this was a first for me, sharing and being this vulnerable. In fact, after I wrote it and shared it on all my social medias, I immediately had a pang of regret, like, oh no, I overshared. It was way too much. I think that's a good marker of a great essay, is a feeling of regret afterwards. But today I'm going to look at my essay that I wrote. It's in different parts and just reacting live as it's going. Also, I had to record this because I'm getting my nails redone today. Kumi, my nail artist, is amazing, and this has been a wonderful set, so this has to live in prosperity on the internet. So a little context and a little pause because I had to get my essay up here on this monitor. Around the time that I wrote this, I remember it so vividly because I had woken up in the morning. I feed the cats in the morning. They're very, very persistent if you have cats. And so I was awake early, having my coffee, and I was just having this rumbling feeling inside of me. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to sit down and write what's on my mind. Before this, I had done a little bit of morning pages from the artist's way. I had tried to do different types of journaling. This was the first time where I thought, okay, I'm going to write everything down and then I'm going to share it very publicly. So from that start of 7 a.m., getting ready, commuting to work, sitting down before my first meeting, it was just flowing through me, like everything that was on my mind, everything that I was feeling. It was just a true flow state. And if you've ever been in that mode, you know how it feels like. I thought I was going to miss work. That's how much it was coming out of me in a good way, not in so I started writing it out. And one of the things in the beginning is that I'm acknowledging that I have so much to be grateful for. Like, I'm definitely not blind to that in my life. Like, the privilege that I have, where I'm at, what I've been able to accomplish, all of those things are just, I'm so incredibly grateful for. And I acknowledge all of it. And yet, I really wanted more from this. And for context, it was just like a nonstop sprint of my work and building the product. It was doing something really out of my comfort zone, which was learning how to speak on stage in front of 4,000 people. And there was timing and your breath work and how you're projecting and where you look, your performance of it all. There was also just in my personal life too. My husband and I were trying for kids. We had just gotten our cats as well. So all of those things accumulating together. I have a great friend base that, I built up over the years being here in Sydney. I was applying for my PR. So all of these things look like, hey, your life is all together, right? And still, I think I was searching for some kind of moment where you get this lovely ta-da, like you've made it. You've made it. You've done the thing. You've accomplished this, and it's amazing. And now that you've made it, all these other parts of your life are going to be figured out as part of that. And that's just not the case. Now that I look back at this and I see how I'm trying to work through it and run through the logic of it, like, I think I thought once I got off stage, there would be a moment where, you know, angels would sing down and the next chapter of your life opens up. And I think this comes from a place of, especially for myself, but I do see this and some writing about it where people in my age range, millennials, we have been chasing credibility. We want to have a paper, we want to go to an institution, we want to have like all these accomplishments that are checked off, and then we can put on a profile somewhere, even if it's our personal one, to show that we've done this thing, and that gives us credibility. And the way the world has been shaping now, for better or for worse, is that there really isn't a need for this type of credibility or accomplishments. If you're going out there and doing things and being vocal, that can also get you further in life. That's why a lot of university students are wondering, like, why am I here and paying for this? Like, what am I learning? Because I could just go on social media and make a pretty good career for myself, right? So I think the ways of the world, the structures that we're seeing are kind of crumbling, because there used to be a social contract where, you know, if you went to said institution, if you joined said company, and if you worked your way up and did all of these things, then your life would look like this. And you would have the general markers, at least I'm coming from a Western perspective, of you'll get married, you'll have a house. If you're not in a city, you'll get a car, you'll have your kids, you'll work in a career that pays into your retirement, and then you retire and then you enjoy all of your life. And those social contracts between institutions just aren't happening anymore. And so naturally it's like, well, why am I doing this? What should I strive towards more? And for me, it was less about these kind of like, oh, these institutions are crumbling around. That's kind of how I see it now, like looking at why we have this. But I think it was because I love to have a goal and strive towards that. I know that I love a stressful environment. Sometimes that is the only way I can get certain things done, if there's an extreme deadline. So I acknowledge all of that, but I think what I didn't touch on and what I was struggling with is understanding and acknowledging who I am without institutions surrounding me. And what I mean by that is that it's very natural in society, I feel, that we want to have these labels. It's helpful for our brain, but also we understand that, you know, if you call yourself a wife and a mother, your life might look a certain way. And so if I'm meeting you as a stranger, I know who you are and kind of how your life looks like and the questions that I can ask. And that has, you know, evolved into so many different aspects of our lives, like what we do for work, brands we align to, the type of animals or pets that we have, our opinions on certain sports teams. Like, all of these things become labels that help give us that structure. But specifically in work, when you take away your title at a company, you take away the steps that you've gone in that way, and how you've accomplished where you're at, it does start to break down. Like, your identity becomes so ingrained with your work that when these institutions, like with all these layoffs that we see now, when these institutions kind of roll back that, like, hey, you're going to have a spot and a place and a way to better yourself, and it's for the benefit of you, but also for us as a company, and win-win, right? When these institutions are saying, okay, yeah, never mind, we don't need you anymore. For you and yourself, you're like, well, what is my role? What's my identity? What am I doing here? And so this has been something that I've come to a conclusion that is different from what I wrote. Myself at this time, I don't think I had looked at it like what is my personal myth as a being outside of work. And there's a great essay that I'll link below that talks about building your own personal myth, because in an age of new technology, also in an age of us mistrusting and not trusting institutions, we're going to have to build new ones. And you need to know who you are within yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what drives you, what are your values, to build your new role, your new view on life that is outside of what has been traditionally done before, right? And I hadn't touched on that quite yet in this. I wasn't there yet because what I did instead was I made goals. I made 4 goals of what I wanted to strive towards next. And what's funny is that when I had shared this around and different people had read it, I'd gotten a number of advice that was essentially, oh boy, you shouldn't be making these goals actually. Like, the best thing you can do is actually to not have any goals whatsoever that have an accomplishment. And at the time I was like, oh no, I still need to have a goal. Like, I can't just do this on its own. Looking back now, I understand why they say that, because each of my goals, which was essentially around being a better writer, having a better connection with my body, being a better person in relationships, and giving back into the world in some way. And while all of these are not like a quote unquote smart goal from work, it still gave me enough structure to look at what I wanted to do. But the downside of actually setting these kind of goals, even though they were a bit more vague and they were a desire of where I wanted to go, it still has a quantifiable area behind it. And what I mean by that is I can then point to being a better writer, not through my craft or dedication or what I'm trying to accomplish, where I want to push myself, even being able to define something like, what is my voice? What do I want to write? Instead, it can make it really easy for me to then say, well, I wrote 20 articles, so that makes me a better writer. Same with the connection with the body. I wanted to go to Pilates and yoga. And so then I started treating it like, okay, I need to go to X amount of sessions per week in order to achieve this, rather than going to the true intention, which was like having an actual connection with my body. And that might not mean working out insane hours, right? Or trying to achieve a cultural expectation of what a good body looks like, right? Like, it can get really muddy really quick. Even being a better person in the relationship, one of the things is like, I just struggle to reply to things. I get overwhelmed. I think about like the energy back and forth. So unless it's like my friends or my husband, it can be very hard to get a hold of me, just because I know there's expectations and energy behind it. You can't really say that in auto reply. Hey, by the way, it might take a while for me to reply to you because I have this anxiety about replying to things. But even that has a quantifiable thing. I can go through and say, I did X amount of replies, and I was able to get back to these kind of people, and we had these kind of hangouts. And even giving back into the world, that was centered around working with STEAM mentors, being able to go to schools and do different events. And while I did do those, again, there's still this quantifiable quality behind all of it, where I could say I did X amount of events, and I can share about it, and I can say, here's what I did at XYZ institution, and look at what I'm doing. All of these have something that give me something to share about that in another light could be seen as really lovely accomplishments, and they are all great things to go towards. I know that my past self, and knowing me, a lot of this I think was to show that I'm doing more to expand how I look, so that way if I ever wanted to have another opportunity or to open a door for something, I could show all of these pieces. Now, again, none of these things are wrong. And I think it's fine to share all of these wonderful things. There's also another great essay about going through side doors rather than and opening your own door towards your career path, rather than feeling like, you have to go up into applications and the ladder and everything. There's ways that you can do that. And in a way that this could accomplish that, but I think there was still a core missing piece in my own introspection, in my own self, of like, who am I and what is my, again, personal myth about what I want to do? Who am I as a person, as someone who is a creative and putting things out into the world? Like, what is that? What am I known for? And it sounds very individualistic, but if you think about who we are in a community, you need to know who to go to, right? Like, who do I go to for advice about this? Who can I lean on if I need support at this kind of juncture in my life? Or, I'm doing an event and I want to bring people together. How can I form that? Also requires for someone to know who you are as a person. And if everything that you have is surrounded around your institutions and what you put out there, not necessarily as like your creative output necessarily, but you're just like, what are you posting and doing and known for? I just feel like, and as I was talking, I lost my train of thought, which just shows like how there's so many different aspects to this, to knowing yourself, to knowing where you are, knowing who you are, and also knowing where you are in the system that is surrounding you and how you want to move through it, what you want to do. But you can't move through a system, and you can't really play the game, quote unquote, or find the door that you want to open if you truly don't know yourself. And I feel like in the past year, when I look at my writing and I see what I was struggling with, what I was looking for was something that gives me more flexibility within how I view myself. That it is not just your job title and what you've done, but more like my own personal work and artistry and understanding and everything being outside of that. So that this is all a long way to say that while I felt like I was touching on something here, I knew something was wrong. I fundamentally knew something was wrong because I was just like, this is it. Like, I've done all these crazy things in my career. I've climbed so high. I've done this wild event that I never thought I would do. I'm an incredibly shy person and I'm like speaking on stage. And then I have all those wonderful parts of my life and it just feels like it's all come together. Loving husband, great family that we have together with our cats. We're both living abroad from our home countries and thriving. I have a great set of friends, both here and across the world. All of these things feel really great. But yet I was still like, it's not enough. And the reason why it wasn't enough is because I didn't know who I was to know what is enough. And there's never going to be an enough. Life is very fluid. There's so much change that happens. Even the change that we're experiencing now with technology and how the world is moving and where governments are going, like all of these things change so much that we'll never be at a point where it'll be like, okay, mission accomplished. And so you have to look at it as who am I as a person, and what do I actually want my life to look like? What do I actually want to contribute back to my community? What do I want to be known for, so that way people can come to me and ask for this and I can help them through XYZ. This is my, what do I want to do as an artist, and what's my point of view? What is my stance on the world, and how does that help everyone around me? Like, I think these are really important introspective questions that often get lost, including in myself, because there's so many other things that you see. We, especially if you're a creative, but this can be for anybody. You see so much on the internet now. You see so much stuff that's posted that often makes you feel like you're behind, or it makes you feel like, oh, I want to do this thing now, I guess, because everyone else is doing it, so I guess I should do it now too. And will I be left behind if I don't do that? All of these things are so complicated, and the question, like, to answer that, but you can't answer that unless you truly know yourself. And that takes time. It takes introspection. It also takes trying things and failing a lot. You'll probably try things and you're just like, I don't like to do that. Like, for example, in the essay, I wanted to be, when I talk about being a better writer, I talk about being a speaker. And one of the things is, if you do talks, you need to think about the flow of how you're going along. So I thought, oh, I'll just do a bunch more talks, because that'll also help with my writing. And what I don't like is repeating myself in these talks. Normally when you're doing like the speaker circuit or these kind of things, they want to know, do you have like a set presentation and what you're going to talk through? And this helps with everything like logistics, planning, and that. And for yourself as a speaker, you would also kind of have a set of things, so you don't have to like constantly do this rework, right? Like, you want to know that you can deliver on this talk. People know you for that talk, and that's how you feed your information, you feed your knowledge, and you help spread that around in the community, right? And that's a great way to do it. What I realized was I really hate repeating all these things. I want to make each talk different and unique, but that doesn't necessarily make sense to do a speaker circuit or to do those kind of conferences. But what I do like doing is going on panels, and I like doing podcasts and things that let me be more off the cuff as part of that. Also, when I'm writing my essays, like, I realized as a newsletter, you want to have a specific topic, specific frame of mind, maybe even a format. And what I realized was that I don't want to do that, because I have so many different interests, and sometimes I just want to write about random things. And before, I thought that that was a detriment, because what am I going to be known for? But the reality is what I'm known for is all these different things. So being okay with yourself to accept that, like, hey, my newsletter is not going to look like everybody else's. I'm treating it like a blog. Therefore, I'm probably not going to have the same growth as everybody else. So when I see all of these kind of solutions of how to grow things, maybe it doesn't work for me, but I can try something else, because that's not my intention, is not to be a number one bestseller in that way. My intention is I want to talk about topics that I know people are struggling with, and see where I can give that advice or guidance, or even just from my own personal stories. And so you see how that kind of like flips from what I was thinking in my essay, where it still had this quantifiable notion, rather than like, what am I actively wanting to give back into the world? What am I creating that actually helps everyone else? And that was important to me. Like, it's less about me being visible, which is also a very worthy goal. I don't think it's wrong to be like, I want to, be the top star of XYZ. Like, that's not bad either. That's that's what you want to do. But for myself, like, when I was doing all this introspection and as I've been writing, I was like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. Of course, we want to be visible. We're on social media. We have a fear of mortality. Like, this is why humans do this kind of stuff. But there was a deeper meaning behind it, because I knew who I was. So all of this reaction as I've been speaking this out and also off the cuff is really finding my core kind of belief, my core values. Sometimes you'll see this when you look at coaching or advice across the internet. It'll be around, what are your distinct 5 values that how you can stress test decisions against? And sometimes that feels very basic. Like, of course we know our values, but it is a true and useful exercise in understanding yourself. And it can go even deeper and deeper as you're kind of figuring this out. But I think the challenge here for you, and I'm still going through this for me, is how do you define yourself without talking about these institutions that exist today? My workplace, my school, my even like communities that are surrounding. If there's something that's very kind of like your identity becomes part of that institution, it's very hard. So even me saying like, I'm a writer and designer, I could go further and say I'm a writer and designer at blah, blah, blah. That would qualify that, right? But we have to stop thinking in this way of this kind of relation, because what if 10 years from now, I don't know, the role of a designer has shifted to something completely different? I would be super out of sorts as that's shaping if I was thinking in this very distinct manner, rather than the reason why I am a designer is that I love solving problems. Like, I just love getting in and solving a problem. That's a very different aspect of looking at something between an institution and role versus what you enjoy doing, who you are, what's that balance there. Anyways, all rambling, unfiltered, haven't cut anything down, no script. So this all might make sense and it all might not make sense, but that's okay, because that's part of this too. Even this is an experiment and push for myself of how do you share advice or thinking to a broader set of people, when before what I've been doing now is just writing and going on panels and podcasts that can reach only a certain amount of people. This is another way to do that. And maybe I'll really like it, and maybe I won't like it, but I won't know that until I experiment and find out, and then I'll see. So I hope you have some insights, if anything, just some background noise as I've been going through this, but some kind of thing that can help you think about your self. Maybe you're going through a similar thing that I was going through a year ago, where I was, wondering what was next and what am I striving towards. And it was all very external based, external accomplishments, getting that kind of validation. And a year now, I feel like I have moved from needing this external validation, these roles, institutions, being backed up by all of these things, to now moving towards intrinsic motivation. As a writer, it's more of I want to be really proud of it. With my body, it's this being proud of my body, like in my own way. Same with my relationships, giving back in the world. It's all through my own definition rather than what I think I should be doing, what institutions are telling me to do, what other people are telling me to do. Instead, it's like all driven through me and how I'm contributing back. So just a thought exercise for you. You might have different values. There might be different motivations that you have. And so it might look differently for you, but I think that's a good thing. And that's what will help carry things forward. Anyways, you can read my writing. Like I said, it goes through many different topics, but I really love exploring the world around us and how we understand that for ourselves. And that can be done through essays, through fiction. That's how I'm expressing myself and how I'm working through it. So I'm curious how you do it as well. And thanks for watching.